Marcus Chen stood in the fluorescent-lit aisle of his discount retail chain at 9:47 p.m., wearing a name tag that read Mike, new employee. The worn laminate floors reflected the harsh overhead lights, and the smell of cheap air freshener mixed with cardboard filled his nostrils. He was 3 weeks into working undercover to understand why 12 stores in low-income neighborhoods were failing while his suburban locations thrived. His board wanted to close them. Marcus wanted answers first. A gust of cold November wind rushed through the automatic doors as they slid open with a mechanical whir. A woman burst through, her coat so thin Marcus could see the outline of her work uniform underneath. She was dragging a small boy who couldn't have been older than 6, his hand clasped tightly in hers. The child wore no jacket despite the freezing temperature outside, just a faded superhero t-shirt that was at least 2 sizes too small, riding up to expose his thin stomach. "Please," the woman said breathlessly to Derek, the night manager who was approaching with his keys already jangling in his hand. "Please don't close the store. My son needs more blankets." Her voice cracked on the last word, desperation bleeding through every syllable. Marcus felt his chest tighten as he watched the scene unfold from his position restocking cereal boxes. Derek checked his watch with visible irritation, his face twisted into an expression Marcus had seen too many times during his undercover stint. The look of someone who saw customers as obstacles rather than people. We close in 13 minutes. You need to make this quick." His tone was clipped, dismissive, already mentally checked out for the night. Marcus observed the boy more carefully now. The child was shivering despite being indoors, his small arms wrapped around himself. His lips had a faint blue tinge, and his sneakers were so worn that Marcus could see his sock through a hole near the toe. The woman's hands trembled as she fumbled with a small, battered zippered pouch, pulling it from her purse with the kind of careful desperation that spoke of counting every penny. "I have $43, she said, her voice gaining strength as she tried to compose herself. "Our heat got shut off today. I just got paid from my shift at the diner, and I called everywhere, and the shelter said they're completely full, and I just need—" Her voice dissolved into something between a sob and a cough, her shoulders shaking with the effort of holding herself together in front of her son. Derek's face remained stone, unmoved by the raw desperation in front of him. "Blankets are in aisle 7. 12 minutes now, He gestured vaguely toward the back of the store and turned away, already focused on his closing checklist. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest as he watched her sprint toward the aisle, the boy's worn sneakers squeaking on the linoleum floor with each hurried step. The sound echoed through the nearly empty store, a rhythm of desperation that seemed to synchronize with Marcus's own heartbeat. He abandoned his restocking cart and followed them quietly, maintaining enough distance to observe without intruding. She was in the bedding section now, her eyes scanning price tags with mounting desperation. Her fingers touched each item carefully, as if the physical contact might somehow lower the cost. $31 for a thin twin blanket. $24 for a slightly thicker one. $18 for a small throw that wouldn't cover her son's entire body. She picked up items, checked the tags, then reluctantly returned them to the shelves. Her phone came out, and Marcus watched her fingers fly across the calculator app, adding numbers, subtracting, adding again. The mathematics of poverty, he thought. The cruel arithmetic of choosing between warmth and food, between shelter and medication. The boy tugged her sleeve gently. "Mama," he said in a small voice that nearly broke Marcus completely. "I'm not that cold." "Really? We can get the small one." His eyes were wide and earnest, trying so hard to be brave for his mother. The woman closed her eyes, and Marcus saw a tear escape down her weathered cheek, cutting a path through the exhaustion etched into her face. She knelt down to her son's level, cupping his cold face in her hands. "Baby, you're freezing. Don't tell me you're not." Her voice was thick with unshed tears. "Mama's going to figure this out, okay? We are going to be warm tonight." But even as she said it, Marcus could see the doubt in her eyes, the weight of promises she wasn't sure she could keep. That's when Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He pulled his phone from his pocket, stepped into the next aisle where they couldn't see him, and made a call that would take exactly 4 minutes. "Jennifer, it's Marcus," he said quietly to his executive assistant, who he'd briefed to be available at all hours during his undercover operation. "I need you to do something immediately. Are you ready to write this down?" He gave her precise instructions, speaking quickly but clearly. Contact the electric company's emergency line and authorize payment for a heating bill at an address he was about to obtain. Arrange for an immediate delivery from their warehouse. Winter coats in child and adult sizes, heavy blankets, groceries, basic necessities. Use the company's emergency fund. Make it happen within the hour. Jennifer didn't ask questions. She'd worked with Marcus long enough to trust his judgment completely. Marcus said gently as he rounded the corner, approaching mother and son. His heart was pounding, and he realized his own hands were shaking slightly. She turned toward him, startled, her body instinctively moving to shield her child. She wiped her face quickly with the back of her hand, trying to erase the evidence of her tears. "I'm sorry, I'm hurrying, I just need to figure out," she stuttered, her words tumbling over each other. He held up his hand in a peaceful gesture. "I'm not Derek, and I need to tell you something important." He took a deep breath, aware that the next words would sound impossible, unbelievable. "My name is Marcus Chen. I own this company. Every store in this chain, including this one." Her face went completely blank with confusion, as if his words were in a foreign language her exhausted brain couldn't process. She blinked several times, looked down at his name tag that read Mike, then back up at his face, searching for signs that this was some kind of cruel joke. Her son pressed closer against her leg, sensing something important was happening but not understanding what. What?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the store's refrigeration units in the distance. Marcus continued quickly, aware that Derek would be making closing announcements any moment and wanting to get this out before interruptions shattered the moment. "In less than 2 minutes, a truck is arriving from the electric company. I've just authorized payment for your heating bill. Not just today's Reconnect Ion fee, but the next 6 months of service, paid in full." He watched her process this information, saw her mouth open and close without sound. "There's also a delivery being arranged right now to your address tonight. Winter coats for both of you, thick blankets, groceries, and some other essentials. It's already done. The trucks are being loaded as we speak." Her legs seemed to give out slightly, and she grabbed the metal shelf beside her for support, her knuckles turning white with the grip. I can't. Why would you?" The words came out fragmented, her mind clearly struggling to accept what she was hearing. "This doesn't make sense. People don't just... Nobody does things like this." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion, memories flooding back with such intensity he had to pause before speaking. "Because 8 years ago, I was that kid," he said, his voice rough with barely contained feeling. He looked directly at her son, seeing his own childhood reflected in those wide, worried eyes. "My mom made the exact same choice you're making right now. Work 3 jobs or keep the heat on. Feed us or keep the lights on. Buy us clothes or buy medication." He crouched down to be at eye level with the boy, wanting him to understand this moment, to remember it. "I wore the same thin jacket through 2 entire winters because my mom spent the coat money on my asthma medication. I remember shivering in school, pretending I wasn't cold, telling my mom I was fine just like you just did." He looked back up at the woman, whose tears were now falling freely, no longer bothering to hide them. "My mother worked 16-hour days, sometimes 20 when she could get the shifts. She destroyed her health trying to keep us afloat. And we were drowning anyway, slowly, inevitably." Marcus stood back up, his own eyes now wet. "Then one day, someone helped us. A complete stranger paid 3 months of our rent when we were being evicted. Just left an envelope with cash and a note that said pass it forward when you can. My mom searched for months trying to find out who it was, but they stayed anonymous. She never found them." He paused, letting the weight of that memory settle. But that one act of kindness, it changed everything. It gave her enough breathing room to get stable, to quit 2 of her jobs and focus on one better one. It saved us. Maybe even saved our lives. The woman's hands were covering her mouth now, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. Other shoppers were starting to notice, slowing down as they passed the aisle, sensing the emotional weight of whatever was happening. "I can't accept this," she finally managed to say, though her voice lacked conviction. "It's too much. I don't deserve." "Stop," Marcus said firmly but gently. "You already have accepted it. It's done. The payments are processing. The delivery trucks are loaded. But I do need something from you, and I need you to hear me out before you say no." She looked up at him, frightened now, her face showing the wariness of someone who'd learned that nothing came without strings attached. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice small and suspicious. Marcus smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "Your name, your phone number, and your expertise. You're going to help me completely redesign how this company treats people who are in crisis." He gestured around the store, encompassing not just the building but everything it represented. "I've been working undercover for 3 weeks, watching how my employees interact with customers, seeing how our policies play out in real life. And tonight, watching you and your son, I finally understood what I really needed to know." He began walking slowly down the aisle, and she followed instinctively, her son's hand still clasped in hers. These stores exist in neighborhoods where people are one emergency away from complete disaster. One car repair, one medical bill, one missed paycheck away from homelessness. And we are treating them like inconveniences. We are rushing them out at closing time. We are training our staff to see them as problems to be managed rather than neighbors who need support. Marcus stopped and turned to face her fully. "You're going to be a paid consultant. A real position with a real salary. We are creating a comprehensive hardship program, extending store hours, training staff completely differently, partnering with social services, creating emergency assistance funds. And you're going to tell me what actually helps, what actually matters, because you're living it right now. You know what people need, not what corporate executives think they need." Derek appeared at the end of the aisle, his voice carrying over the store's intercom system. "Attention shoppers, the store will be closing in 1 minute. Please bring your purchases to the register now." His tone was mechanical, bored, completely disconnected from the human drama unfolding in aisle 7. Marcus turned to Derek with a look that made the manager physically step back. "Derek, you're being transferred to our warehouse inventory department effective immediately. This store is getting a new manager tomorrow, someone who remembers what it's like to count change for dinner and understands that people matter more than closing checklists." Derek's face flushed red, but one look at Marcus's expression told him this wasn't a discussion. Marcus turned back to the woman, his voice soft again. "So tell me, what's your name?" She was crying and laughing simultaneously now, her emotions completely overwhelming her careful control. Her son had wrapped both arms around her leg and was looking up at Marcus with something like awe. "Jessica," she said through her tears. "Jessica Morrison. And this is Tyler." Marcus extended his hand formally. "Jessica Morrison, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I want you to come to this address." He pulled out a business card and wrote on the back, "This is our corporate headquarters downtown. Ask for me specifically. We have a lot of work to do, and I need your help to do it right." As they walked together to the register, Marcus personally scanning items while Derek watched in stunned silence, Jessica gathered her courage to ask the question that had been building. "Why are you really doing this? The truth." Marcus paused in his scanning, looking at Tyler, who was now clutching a thick, warm blanket, his small face finally relaxed and peaceful. 23 years ago, someone saw my mom's desperation and chose compassion over convenience. They chose humanity over policy. They'll never know that they saved our lives, that their kindness meant I could stay in school, that my mom lived long enough to see me graduate college. He met Jessica's eyes directly, wanting her to see the absolute sincerity there. "Tonight I got to be that person for you. And tomorrow, we are going to build a company that makes that choice every single day, in every store, for every person who walks through our doors." 6 months later, everything had changed. The Morrison Initiative had been implemented across all 73 stores in the chain. Extended hours meant people working evening shifts could shop after work. Emergency assistance programs connected customers with resources. Staff underwent comprehensive training in crisis intervention and community resources. Partner organizations set up information tables in stores. The 12 failing locations weren't just surviving now, they were thriving, becoming genuine community hubs. Sales had increased 42% in previously struggling locations, but Marcus barely glanced at those numbers anymore. What mattered was the letters he received daily from customers whose lives had been changed, from employees who felt proud of where they worked, from community leaders thanking him for finally seeing their neighborhoods as places worth investing in. But Marcus kept one photo on his desk in a simple wooden frame. Jessica and Tyler Morrison on their first official day of work, both wearing warm winter coats, both smiling with genuine joy. Tyler was holding a sign he'd made himself in careful crayon letters that read, "Thank you for not closing the store." Jessica had been promoted twice already, now overseeing community outreach for the entire chain, and Tyler was thriving in school, no longer worrying about whether home would be warm that night. Marcus touched the frame gently each morning when he arrived at his office, reminding himself why all of this mattered, why compassion in business wasn't just good ethics but good sense, why seeing people as human beings rather than transactions could transform everything. The stranger who'd helped his family all those years ago would never know the ripple effect of their kindness, how it had saved a boy who grew up to save others, how one envelope of cash had ultimately helped thousands of families. But Marcus knew, and he made sure that every person who walked into his stores felt that same compassion, that same recognition of their inherent worth and dignity.